Good morning, welcome to our Mental Monday on 18th of May. So just to let you know what's going to be happening during these sessions, I'm going to introduce you or remind you of basically a habit or a tool, mental tool that we can use for the lockdown to help us with how we're coping, to help us reach goals, etc. And this will be something that we can carry on over into the real world when it happens again. During the lockdown, I think that most of us can agree there is a general sense of anxiety for everyone, no matter how well or how hard we are finding coping during this time. It's a time of uncertainty. This uncertainty isn't going to be resolved yet, and so we're all feeling a little bit anxious. What that means for us in our day-to-day lives is that it's likely our chimp brain is taking over more than we like it. So I'm not going to go too much into brains now, but we have the way that our minds work. We've got our conscious decision making, we've got sort of primal decision making, which is what could be referred to as the lizard brain, and we've got the chimp, which is more of an automated system that takes over during times of stress or panic. It's had useful things to do in the past, but right now for us as conscious, rational human beings, the chimp brain isn't always useful. So you can have a think about it as if you're stuck in a traffic jam and someone cuts you up and you go nuts. I mean, that's not really going to help you or anyone. That's just emotions and feeling taking over from the chimp brain. So during lockdown, this could mean for us that the kids are getting on our nerves a little bit more than usual and we're losing our temper. And for a lot of us, what it could mean is that we are reverting to more unhealthy coping mechanisms for the feelings that we're feeling that are triggering this chimp brain. So you can think of it like if something's really stressed you out, if something's really upset you that day, if something's made you really angry. So these kind of more primal negative emotions, they get triggered, and then we usually, we have a response to that as a human to soothe ourselves and bring ourselves back to homeostasis. So that could mean, for example, you're stressed out, you go for a run, you'll cross the children, you take 5 minutes to breathe, etc., etc. So those would be more positive, healthy mechanisms. Less healthy ones could be screaming at the children, it could be, kicking a bin over, it could be reaching for the gin, it could be eating all the cake that's left, it could just be sitting and watching TV for an entire day. So we've got more or less healthy coping mechanisms for these, depending on what our goals are. Now, most of our goals aren't to sit around eating cake and getting fat. That's maybe a nice thing to do, but that's not our actual goal. Our goals is to get fitter and healthier and grow as people. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the time to do that. It absolutely isn't. But what I can say is that to try and bring ourselves a sense of control a little bit more, to try and feel a bit more positive about ourselves and our situation, what we can do is that we are going to look at how we can trick that chimp brain. Okay, so we talk about habit. I talk about habits a lot. As coaches, we talk about habits. We are what we repeatedly do. That is, we are based on our habits, pretty much. Our conscious and rational decision making is only a small part of our day. Most of what we do is habit-based. We have a trigger, we respond to it in a certain way. That's a habit. So you walk into your kitchen, you open the fridge door, you pick at something, or you get into your car and you drive to work, and let's face it, most of us don't really think about how we're doing it. It's just a habit that we're used to doing. Or we put the kettle on, we get the coffee out first thing in the morning, if you're me. So it's not something I consciously really think about doing, it's a habit. So if we can control our habits, we can control our lives. And bringing willpower into this to make or break habits, willpower, in my opinion, is a little bit of a myth. You're kind of fighting yourself a lot of the time. So I'm not really one for battling the mind. I think that we can manipulate it in healthy, positive ways, trick it a little bit, and build new things from there. So today, looking at what we're going to do, we're going to trick that chimp brain by how it reacts to our triggers. What we're not going to do is worry about not doing whatever it is that stresses us out, okay? So your trigger might just be it's Friday or Saturday evening and you've sat down and that's your relaxed time. So your trigger was the stress of the week. Your reaction to it is to relax. That way of relaxing might be a bottle of wine, a massive bag of crisps, or it might be any one of things that are not particularly healthy for us. Your trigger might be that your people that you're living with are really stressing you out, and so you shout at them. There might be any number of things. So the first thing that you're going to do is I'd like you to write down one, maybe two things that trigger you during the week. It could be work stress, it could be anything. So something that invokes a negative feeling in you regularly is something that I'd like you to do. For me, like tiredness is a massive trigger, and instead of going to bed, I'll do any number of things and just get stroppy and upset, but I should just go to bed. So write down something for you that triggers you, and then write down that your go-to response for that trigger. The next thing we're going to do is we're not going to worry about taking away that go-to response. If your trigger to just getting very upset about something is to eat a bar of chocolate, we're not going to sit there and say, let's stress yourself out by thinking, no, I'm not going to have that chocolate, I'm not going to have that chocolate. This point in time, you'll just end up making yourself feel worse. And actually what I want to do is lay the foundation to prove that we can do better. You know, we can do better for ourselves. We're all capable of doing this. It's just steps of how to get there. So what I want you to think about is a positive, a healthier for you coping mechanism, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's taking a bath, whether that's doing some stretching, whether it's phoning up a friend and having a good conversation, going for a run, anything that for you is a healthier coping mechanism. So I want you to write down what your trigger is, so stress, sadness, anger, what your go-to response for that is, and then if it's an unhealthy response, and then I want you to write down something that you do anyway, that when you make time or think about it, that counteracts that trigger that's more positive, like a bath or candles or anything like that. Next thing you're going to do, and this could be something that happens to you daily, it could be weekly, anything at all, is, and this is where a little bit of effort is going to come in, when you're feeling that feeling, and set yourself up in the week so that you can do this, when you're feeling that feeling, I want you to do the healthier coping mechanism first. So I don't want you to say to yourself, oh, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to go for a run and be really healthy, and I'm not going to have this, that and the other. I don't want you to do that, because the chimp at this point is anxious, it's stressed out, it's going to fight you, it's going to overpower you. So what you're going to do is you're going to tell that chimp brain, okay chimp, we're feeling really, really shit right now, really fucked off. The chocolate can wait, it's there, I'm not going to take it away from you chimp, you can have the chocolate, but just before we do that, I'm just going to do a little bit of yoga, okay? And then you make a little agreement with that chimp in your head and do the positive thing first, whatever it is. Even if you only spend a minute or two doing it before you get pissed off and frustrated, do that. Once you've done that, if you still feel like doing the other thing, then go for it. We're not here to take that away at the moment. We're here to add in something positive. So best case scenario, you go for your run, you have your chat, you come out of it thinking, oh, actually I feel all right now, whatever it is can wait, I'm not bothered about that. Worst case scenario is that you try it for 2 seconds, you get in a right strop and you go for that anyway. So, well, you haven't really lost anything, but what you've started to do is plant that seed in your brain, starting a new habit, a new association of something positive with a negative trigger. Middle case scenario, which is going to be a lot of the time, you do something, you do it a little bit, you kind of feel a bit better, but you're thinking, actually, I might have a bit of X, Y, and Z anyway. Chances are, whatever your response was going to be, will be reduced. So if you've decided to step away and have 2 minutes of breathing when you're really cross at someone, you might go back, you might be a bit cross at them, but actually it probably won't be the full-on argument that you might have had otherwise. And again, all you're doing is you're associating a positive reaction to a trigger, whether the negative there is there or not, you've still got that positive association. At the end of it, and you do this repeatedly, it will get easier and easier. And if you do this for a couple of days, a week, then you're still doing something positive to yourself. You've still got something to feel good about yourself for. So we're not worrying about the negative, we're just thinking about the positive thing that you're doing. And you might sort of let it go for a week, you might try again, but with practice and keep coming back to this, it gets easier and it makes really, really big differences. Just a quick look, is there anything else I wanted to say? No, so that's it for this week. Write down your negative triggers, write down your go-to responses, and these are regular triggers, not every now and then suddenly your house insurance has gone up 10, whatever. So write down sort of regular triggers, write down your go-to negative response. Don't do more than one or two really, and write down a healthier response that you know you'd like. If you try it repeatedly and it doesn't work, then that's great. Like, we know that that hasn't worked for you, and that's as much a positive as anything. You can take that away. So if you think, I'm going to try having a bath every time, you're like, no, this isn't working, great. You know that that's not going to be your positive response. Just think of something else and try that. So a little bit at a time. It's easy to want to try and do everything at once and change everything at once, but trust me on this, let's just do one thing at a time, choose one trigger, one positive response to it, tell the chimp that it can wait for the negative response, do the positive response anyway, and then afterwards do whatever it is you feel like. Okay, a lot of rambling, guys. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good week. I will hopefully see and speak to some of you soon. Bye-bye.